Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out, the space where growth gets real and self love leads the way. I'm your host, Annetta Walklaw, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are worthy, you are enough, and you don't need to wait for permission to love yourself fully. That's exactly why I wrote my book, Blooming with Self Love, to give you the tools, affirmations, and daily mindset shifts to help you stand in your power and own your story. This book isn't just words on a page, it's a movement. So if you're ready to stop shrinking and start showing up for yourself, grab your copy today with the link in the show notes below, and let's walk this self love journey together. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Zulma Williams again. And on our last episode that we did together, we talked about her journey from moving countries, from making the switch from Argentina and going to the United States, and really took the road on her professional life and her career. But today I want to talk a little bit about something a little bit more deeper, something that I don't feel like it's talked about enough, and that's unhealthy relationships. I think we're in unhealthy relationships more times than we can ever think of because there's so many like small little red flags that we don't always see, or we tend to brush things off. So I really want to dive into unhealthy and abusive relationships with Zuma today. So thank you for joining us again.
Of course, it's a pleasure to be here.
So last time we talked a lot about your career and your journey from moving from Argentina to the United States. But now my question for you is, when you were moving from Argentina and going to the United States, were you in a relationship or did you move to the US single? Can you tell us a
No,
little bit about your relationship journey?
sure. So I moved here. I was single at the time. I was 31 when I moved to the United States. I was single. I was still living with my mom. And I took it as an adventure, right? Like if it doesn't work out, I can go back. But so I moved here in December of to California in December of 1996, and then in April of 1999. So I was there for about 2.5 years, and then I moved here to Nevada in April of 1999. And a few months after being here, I met this my prince, right? Like he is from Argentina too. I was going to the Argentinian restaurant to watch soccer every Sunday, of course. We are big soccer fans. So I met this wonderful guy, very charming, very attractive. And we started dating. So I am what, 34 at this time, right? Like, so it's not like I'm a little girl and I didn't know shit about shit. Like I'm a grown ass woman, and I want to I didn't know I was in an abusive relationship, and I cannot say that loud enough because I consider myself a smart woman, but I didn't know I was being abused until my therapist told me later on. Because
Oh,
abuse doesn't start like, oh, you are not going to go see your friends. Is more subtle, like, oh, really, you want to go out with your friends? Why don't you stay and we watch a movie, right? Oh my god, that is so sweet, right? Oh, are we going
yeah.
to your mom's? Like, your sister really doesn't like me. Why don't we just stay and we barbecue, right? So eventually this happens over and over and over, and you become isolated. Abuse is not something that happens overnight, it happens over a period of time. And you become isolated. So your friends stop asking you out because you're saying no so many times. And you are ashamed of telling your family that the person you are dating is not the charming prince that they know, right? Because there is like two different faces. It's like, oh, he's so good, he's so awesome, he's so handsome. And then we close the door and he's a fucking asshole, right? Like, so, but we feel ashamed of staying in that relationship. And also, it's because it doesn't happen all the time. So he wasn't being abusive 24/7. It was the cycle of abuse, right? Like, so it's the tension, then it's the explosion, then it's the honeymoon phase. So it's like, oh my God, like, I'm never going to do it again. I cannot live without you, blah, blah, blah. So there is this story that I like to mention when we are talking about abuse is the frog in a boiling pot. So if you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, the frog is going to jump right out. But if you put the frog in a pot with room temperature water, and then you increase the temperature, the frog adapts and eventually it dies because you are elevating the temperature and it ends up being cooked. But because it adapts, it doesn't jump right out, right? Like, so if my ex would have said, like, you're not going with your friends, I'll be like, motherfucker, like, watch me, like, fuck you, right? But it didn't happen like that. So we are adapting to these demands, if you would, that we can never achieve the goals in an abusive relationship because the goal keeps moving. So the target keeps moving, so you can never achieve it. So let's say that my partner gets mad because dinner wasn't ready at 7. So, okay, so tomorrow dinner is ready at 7. Yeah, but I wanted a steak and you make chicken. So the next day is like, dinner is ready at 7 and it's a steak, but it's not how I want it done. So this is like, you can never reach the goal. And it's like, you start like, what the fuck am I doing wrong, right? Like, we start questioning ourselves. Is never putting on the aggressor. It's like, oh, what is wrong with me? Because, and again, like, this doesn't happen all the time. So it's like, one day he is so sweet, and the Prince Charming that I met at the beginning, right? Like, so it's like the cycle of addiction. Like, if you are in a casino with a machine and you're like, you're like, I'm not winning, I'm gonna leave, and then you hit, and then you are hooked again, right? Like, so you keep right, and oh, I'm not winning, and then I'm gonna leave, and then you hit again, right? Like, so that's what happens in these cycles, where it's like, oh my God, he comes with flowers and with a card and apologizing and crying and saying that I'm not going to do this again. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I yell at you and call you names. Right? So you're like, oh, okay, I'm overreacting. And then eventually, you, in the example with the frog, the temperature is so high that you are burning and you don't even understand why, right? So
Yeah.
like the time that, and so I started therapy, and then there is this other misconception too, that abuse is physical, right? There is emotional abuse, there is verbal abuse, there is financial abuse, but I was under the impression that abuse was physical. So when I started therapy, I was very depressed. I was suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore because I couldn't deal with the pain. And I started therapy, and my therapist said, well, you are being abused. And I was like, oh, no, you're mistaken. He doesn't even touch me. Right? So abuse was like, oh, I beat you up and I sent you to the hospital in my head.
Yeah.
Right? So I started learning about verbal abuse, and I was hitting each one. Like, I remember that I got a book at the library about verbal abuse. I was like, check, 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 right? So there was one particular incident where he became physical. He kicked me and I called the police. That was the kind of like the wake up call, because now it was physical, right? So now I cannot ignore it anymore. The police was called. He slashed my tires, which I didn't know. But then when I went to get to my car, 3 of the tires were slashed. And so he had left. Um, in So I called the police, and then um, he left. So then the police is at my apartment, and they are taking pictures. I bruise very easily. I think that he wanted to kick me in the butt, but he hit me right above. So like I had like, I bruised immediately. So I was like, this is good for the picture. It's like, I'm laughing now, but at the time I wasn't laughing. But he was calling, and I didn't once. It was 2 male officers, and then they sent a female officer to take the pictures. But there was 2 male officers. Even with the police there, I was terrified of the police answering the phone, because it was like, don't answer the phone. He's gonna think that you are my lover. That's how fucking psyched I was, because he had accused me of cheating. Like, if I didn't answer the phone immediately, it's because I was sucking someone's dick. So I was so terrified. And the officers were picking up the phone and saying, like, this is the police, right? But I was like, no, because he was a male. That's how brainwashed I was. So we started doing therapy. Like, he started individual therapy. I was already in individual therapy, and then he started individual therapy, and then eventually we move on to couples therapy, because I didn't understand. We were fighting all the time. Like, why do you want to be in a relationship when we're clearly not happy, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I want to leave. If you leave, I'm going to kill you. Like, if I cannot have you, nobody will. Right? Like, so in there was the gaslighting, like, oh, I'm so glad you are doing therapy because it seems to be helping you. And then another day it was like, are you sure your therapist is a professional, because you are worse than before you started therapy, right? Like, so and I'm like, him accusing me of cheating. Like, I why I don't cheat? Like, I don't cheat. Like, you know driving me crazy, literally, with the accusations. And I'm trapped in this cycle, but I cannot see it, right? Because when you are in the picture, you cannot see the picture. So eventually we start couples therapy, and there was an incident over the weekend, and we go to therapy. I don't remember, let's say on Tuesday. And the therapist always asks us at the beginning, from 1 to 10, where are we? He was at an 8. Right?
Mm, stalker. Stalker.
Right? And I'm like, I'm negative 15. So she was like, oh, what's
Yeah.
going on? Right? Like, so we start talking about what happened over the weekend, which was literally, I caught him lying, and he couldn't get away with not saying. Like, I went to his apartment. We had each other's keys. We were not living together, thank God. And like, he wasn't there. So it's like, okay, you're not here. You're literally not here, right? Like, so. And then he tried to play it off. So I went home, and then he called me the next day, and he was like, oh, and I saw that you've been here, like, playing it off. And it's like, we are going to talk on Tuesday, with the therapist. So she asked what happened. So I gave my version. He gave his version. And she said, do you trust me? She asked me, do you trust him? And I said, no. And she said, why are you in the relationship? Because he said that if I leave, he's going to kill me. And
Did you say that in front of
yes,
him?
yes. And she looked at him and she said, "Is that true?" Not because she didn't believe me, but because she wanted him to admit it, right?
Say it.
And he
Yeah.
said, "Well, yeah, but I'm not going to do it." And I said, "How do I know?" So at that moment, so then we talk a little bit more, blah blah blah, and then during that session, so at that moment he cannot call me crazy anymore, because it's like now there is a neutral person who you are admitting to, right? Like, because like, oh well, I'm scared because he's gonna kill me. Well, I'm not gonna do anything to her. Well, how the fuck do I know that, right? He was bigger than me, he was stronger than me, he knew where I work, he knew where my friends were, right? Like, I mean, it's like, so in during that session he said, if she wants to leave, she can. So he set me free. You don't have to fucking ask me twice. I pull out my keys and I start pulling out his key to give it to him in front of the therapist, because now it's his decision. He is in control of the situation, not me. It's not me leaving. It's him setting me free, right? I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm gonna fucking run, right? Like, so he gave me my key, and then we finished the session, and we were both crying and blah blah blah. And then I went to my therapist, and I was devastated, crying, like, and I'm like sobbing. Isn't this what I wanted? I was devastated. And she said, you need to remember that you love this man. I actually be surprised if you are not devastated, right?
Yeah.
So he tried to get back together, blah blah blah, but it was kind of like there was a break in there where like he set me free, that this is his decision, and I took it and I ran with it, right? Like, so that's my story, but I want to kind of like make parallels with what our listeners might be going through, because there are a lot of factors that are not being considered when there is abuse in a relationship. For example, a woman, statistically, a woman has eight times more chances of being killed by her partner when she leaves. So you are preserving your life by staying, right? Because although there is abuse, it's like you already know what the routine is. The abuser has control, which is what it's all about. It's about control. This is not love. Love doesn't hurt, right? So now if you leave, he has no control. So he's literally out of control. And that's when, if I don't have you, nobody's going to have you, right? From the abuser's point of view, I think that no, I'm putting in my therapist hat, but because I thought like long and hard about this, the abuser needs to dehumanize you in order to continue, because otherwise, so I became a possession. I became an object, right? Like if I don't have you, no, it's like a car. Like if I don't have it, nobody will, right? Like, so I'd rather burn the car or crash it, but nobody's going to have it, because otherwise it cannot be explained how you can continue to do this when the person you supposedly love is getting destroyed right before your eyes, right? So there is a lot of insecurity, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of abusers, like they are afraid that if they show themselves as they are, you're gonna leave. You're not gonna love them, and you're gonna leave. So it's like then it's like I had to keep you here, right? Like I cannot allow you to leave. Um, it's a it becomes um like um like a competition. Like I'm gonna keep you, right? You're a trophy, and you're not gonna, you're not going to make your own decisions, basically, because if I make my own decision and I leave, he ends up looking bad, right? Like, so it's like a direct reflection of who he is, right? Like, so all this, and I'm not as, I don't specialize in the abuser part, but I want to throw that in there because it's like these people are sick, but I'm not sure if they know that they're sick. I don't think that they wake up one day and, okay, I'm going to make Sulma's life miserable. I think that they are miserable and they are reflecting their misery in the relationship, basically, right? Like, okay, so going back to the receiving end, as I said, it doesn't start overnight, right? It's like, oh, he's so sweet, right? Like he wants to spend time together. And then you end up being isolated. There is the shame. I don't want to tell my family. Well, I don't have family here. All my family is in Argentina. But even if, like, if my brother was living here, and I told him my brother is gonna go kill him, right? Like, so I don't want my brother in prison, so I'm not gonna say, right? Like, it's the shame and the fear of what your family is going to do. If you have
Yeah.
children, I didn't have children, and we didn't live together. But if you have children, I don't know how it is in other states, but in the state of Nevada, if you have children with an abuser, he doesn't lose the parental rights unless you prove to the court that he's a threat to the child. So even if I'm in a shelter and I'm protected and I took my kid, he can go to court and he know where I'm going to be on Tuesday because I have a court order, right?
Yeah.
About the child.
About the
So it's
child.
like, right, because I had to prove that he's a threat to the child.
Yeah.
If he's not abusive
So
toward the children, he keeps his parental rights.
absolutely. I kind of want to take a pause here because there's a lot of great information that you have shared. And I kind of want to go back to the start. So I've been taking mental notes, and you were right. It does start so subtle. It doesn't, I really like that example that you were talking about with the frog, because I've never heard that. And it's so true. It's something so subtle and so little, like what you were saying of, oh, maybe you should stay home with me and spend time with me, or something that I experienced a lot. It wasn't spending that quality time, but I experienced the, oh, you look better in this, or oh, this looks better on you, or maybe that you would be better with this. And it's those little hints that add up that make you want to go to that person for approval. And eventually, like, I think it's so crazy because somebody who is confident like yourself, or I can't say I wasn't confident at the time, so I definitely fell for it. But it slowly builds up and then it makes us want to continue chasing their approval because we start to believe that, oh, this person knows best, or this person knows better, or they get me and they love me. But the reality is they're trying to gain that control, which is the start of an unhealthy relationship. And everything that you've said, at least like 90% of it, like I can relate to it. And if I can relate to it, how many other people can? I think it's so important for us to create these safe spaces because we have to have each other's backs. Like, if we don't have safe spaces, these people can actually be really dangerous that we're in relationships with. when you were talking about the story of the police officer, and you didn't want the police officer to talk to him because you thought that you would be cheating on him, that literally my ex would have said the same thing. Oh, you're cheating on me. Why? Who is this man? Just because it's a man's voice. I remember one time I was like, like I want to go do some exercise classes. And I was like, I kept getting ads on Instagram to this kickboxing place that was local. So I signed up, I take a free kickboxing class. I liked it. I signed up. And then he asks me, "Oh, how was kickboxing?" "Oh, it was good." "Was the instructor a male or a female?" I was like, "It was a male." He goes, "You're not allowed to go anymore." I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he told me that I was only allowed to go to boxing unless he was with him. And it's those control tactics, but I was so deep into the relationship that like I absolutely had no say because everything was going to turn into an argument. So, leaving the relationship, once you left the relationship, what was it like for you? What did you have to do to start rebuilding yourself? Because that's a lot of unlearning, not necessarily learning, but unlearning.
So, as she said, I wasn't confident at the time, right? Because like all my confidence was gone because of the mental games, right? Like, oh, you look good, and that, oh, why are you gonna wear that? Like, right? Like, or
Yeah,
oh yeah, you want to go to the kickboxing class because the guy is cute, and you're like, what the fuck? I just want to go, right? Like, because it's like you are so consumed on proving that he's wrong, that you are not cheating or you're not interested in that guy, right? And it's like,
yeah,
so I worked very hard with my therapist into rebuilding my self-esteem. So she said, we cannot change him, right? Like like that is impossible. But if you change, then the relationship cannot stay the same. So while
yeah.
I was still with him, I started building my self-esteem. I started rediscovering who I was, connecting with my essence, right? And then eventually it created that rift that ended up in him setting me free. I mean, he was still controlling me and all those things, but it's like eventually these games don't are not effective anymore. So I work very hard on rebuilding my self-esteem. I After he set me free, which I keep saying it because it's so important. I wasn't allowed to make my own decisions. He set me free, right? Like, and like, I don't have to, as I said, he knew where I work. He knew where my friends lived. Like, so it's like, where the fuck I'm going to be safe? Like, like, he said, if you leave me, I'm going to kill you. You better leave the state
Yeah.
because I'm going to function. I'm going to kill you. And he could find me, right? Like, so after he set me free, then I didn't date for like another year and a half. I continued to work on myself. So a lot of therapy, a lot of um, kind of like looking at these lies in started challenging them, right? Like there is a lot of misinformation, as you mentioned, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not good enough. Because there was the other thing, like, okay, leave me, like who, like nobody, you cannot leave me because nobody's gonna want you, right? And it's like, you are fat, you are ugly, you are old, you are skinny, you are tall, you are short. It doesn't matter what the fuck you are, it's going to be used against you, right? Like, so,
Anything and everything.
right. So it's like, oh my
Everything.
God. So you start believing that. So start kind of like challenging or all those negative thoughts. Um, so it's like you identify the thought, let's say, I'm not enough, right? And then we start challenging with asking questions about that thought. And then eventually you realize that it's not true. It cannot stand because it's not true, right? Like, so but you have it so ingrained in you that you're not enough, that it's like, oh yeah, who's gonna want me, right? um
Mhm.
and so a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a lot of identifying the thoughts and challenging them. All the trauma, he had two children from a prior marriage, and I was grieving my relationship with the children because I loved them so much, and it's a lot of grief processing. And then eventually it was so hard when I met who then became my husband at the time. I'm like, how do I trust you? Right? Like, I mean, was he was cleaning the bleeding that he didn't cause, basically, because it's like, I don't he's a nice guy. We are no longer together, but he's a nice guy, and he was not like my ex. In He kind of like subconsciously I make him prove himself, because it's like, like, I'm not gonna trust you. So
Mhm.
working a lot on differentiating, like, this guy is not the other guy, right? And something very significant happened. I think it was probably 15 years or maybe 17 years after he set me free. I was looking for an apartment, and the girl who was, like, was about to
The
show me an
realtor?
well, no, the apartment, the girl in the apartment complex, like, she was going to show me a
Oh,
unit. And she said, and she asked me, so I gave her my driver license, and then she asked me, are you from Argentina? And I said, yes. How do you know? Right? Because I do have an accent, but like to you know pinpoint the country like that. And she said, do you know a man named blah blah blah? And she was, and I said, yes. And she said, I'm married, like, his son is my husband. She
I
recognized
have
my name.
chills.
Right. She recognized my name because my name is so unique, right? Zulma. And
See her.
apparently the children were talking about me all these years later. I was still present in their lives, which gave me like such a wonderful, warm feeling. But at the same time, I'm like, please don't tell him. Like, so she said, oh, I'm going to tell my husband, right? And I said, please don't tell his father. I'm still like, I don't want him. And clearly, I didn't take that apartment because now he's going to know what. Clearly, he can know what I'm living, because with the internet
Yeah.
now, like, you can know anything. But at the time, like, even all these years later, on the one hand, I was so happy that I make such an impression on his kids that they're still talking about me all these years later. Because, like, why are they gonna? How is she gonna know? She's not even, like, she's a girlfriend. Like, then she became his wife, but and at the same time, my reaction was of fear, not terror like I had before, but a fear that I don't want him to know what I'm living.
Yeah.
So the trauma, the PTSD, the post traumatic stress disorder, is very clear and very real, in a sense of like, I am a different person now. I can defend myself. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. And yet at the same time, subconsciously, I don't want him to know that I'm looking for an apartment there, right? When we first broke up, for the longest time, I didn't go to the Argentinian place because I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah, and there is like at the time, now there's more restaurants, but at the time that was the only place. So if I needed to buy something from, like they have like a little market on the side, and I had to kind of like time it. Like if my team was playing, for sure I'm not gonna go because I know he was gonna be there, right? Like so, it's like I have to time when I'm going to buy shit, food that I want to have, so as to not cross path with him. But all these years later, I am having this gut reaction that please don't tell him that we met, right? Like, and I'm
Yeah.
like, bitch, that is PTSD. That's called PTSD. Like,
Yeah.
and she was talking wonderful things about, oh, he's so nice and he gives me he gives me ideas, and I'm like, I'm hoping that he fucking learns something. Like, like he's this wonderful person, and he might be to her, but I said, and she was looking at me like this bitch, and I'm like, I told her, like, it, the relationship didn't end in good terms, so please, this is a safety issue, don't tell him that I'm here, right? Like it's like she's not getting it. She is
She's
not that
still just like in like,
it
oh,
the
he's a good
image,
person.
right, the image that she has about him. Now, he
Is
might
that
have
what you
changed, right? Like there was a lot of years, like 15, 17 years. So he might have changed. He's a grandpa now, like, right? Because she had children, and his daughter has children too. So it's like now he's a grandpa. I don't know if that fucking changes you, whatever. But I'm not the same person. So I'm presuming he's not the same person. And yet I don't want anything to do with him. Now, if this was a couple of years back, so if I met him now, I think I will say hello, but still I don't want him to know what I'm doing or whatever. But I'm not as scared anymore of what he can do to me. But it's more like a conscious choice that I don't want to get involved with a person like this, right? So
Yeah,
go ahead.
no, I would say that's so real because I had like a fear of leaving my ex-husband because he knew where my family lived. He knew where all my close friends were and everybody that I would hang around. So I was actually more concerned for the people around me more than myself because I knew like I was gonna leave Chicago because that's where we were living. But my friends and family live near Chicago, at least like 1, 2 hour drive. So like that, I had a lot of fear around that too. And it's so real because what one person might have an image of so and so, you have a completely different image because you've seen that person in different levels and different states of mind and different phases. And that's so real. So I think one of the biggest things is, well, I have two things. Safety first, always. But the fact that you went to that apartment building and years and years later, you're still hearing good things about you that they're saying, that gives me a lot of compassion for those abusers in the relationship because it just shows that maybe you were the one to show them what real love looks like, and maybe you were the one to, hold on. Maybe they were the ones to show you how to love yourself, and you were the one to show them what real love looks like. And when I understood that, like things started to click so much more. Like it's less about me and what that person's going on internally, but definitely safety first, always.
Right. And but there is something in us that attract. those kind of relationships, right? Like if like you are not going to attract, I'm not going to attract a similar relationship right now. We're going to see the red flags and we're going to act on them immediately. So you were mentioning red
Yeah.
flags at the beginning, and it's like it's not that we don't see them, it's that we ignore them. And now I don't think we will ignore them because we've seen that movie and it doesn't end good, right? Like so there I think that there is a subconsciously a level of energy that makes it okay for these predators to get us as prey, because they cannot get you or me now, right? It's like we are a completely different person. But at the time there was something, either a weak self-esteem or that need for approval, or like and the love bombing at the beginning, right? Like, oh my god, I cannot live without you, you are the best thing on earth, and blah blah, and you never had that before either, which is not healthy, but it feels so good, right? And it's like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like I never had this. And then little by little that starts being chipped away, and you are craving that, so you keep trying to get that initial thing. And but I so there is a level of, I don't know if it's energy, whatever you want to call it, that we are not repelling this people from entering our lives. So it's like this is a mutual understanding at the beginning, it's a mutual agreement. But as you said, safety first, right? Like, so now we put our safety first. So we are not going to fall for this type of relationships anymore. We might get misled in the beginning, but as soon as we start seeing the signs, we're out.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to prove
Absolutely.
anymore, right? Like
Yeah. And that's just so beautiful. So after all of that experience and looking back at it years later, what is one of your biggest takeaways from the relationship? And what is something that you can share with the listeners that can encourage them if they are in those kinds of situations at the moment?
absolutely. It brought me back to myself, right? Like, so that is my biggest takeaway. I rediscovered who I am. I am happy with who I am. I start loving myself. I start liking myself. And if for our listeners, if they are in a type of situation like we are describing, you need to take care of your safety first, because yes, and that's what a lot of people don't understand on the outside, right? Like, why don't you just leave? Like, you must like it, right? And I wanted to fucking beat the shit out of everybody who says that, because if I leave, I'm gonna get killed, right? Like, that's why I stay. But so look for that professional help and start working on yourself. Like my therapist said, if you change, the relationship cannot stand stay the same. So you change, and then the relationship is going to change. This is a long road, but it's the safest one, because again, like, you start building your self-esteem. There is no, we are not what now we are clashing, because I'm not taking that, not in a confrontational way. I'm not telling you you're an asshole, but I'm not believing everything that I'm being told about how bad I am and how I'm nothing and how nobody's gonna want me, all those things, right? Like, so I was like, okay. And like, by building yourself, eventually you in discovering who you are, then eventually the relationship is going to end one way or the other. It's either going to become healthier, or it's going to end, because he doesn't get what he's been getting,
Yeah,
right? The
absolutely.
fear keeps me there. If I'm not afraid anymore, or I'm not buying the shit that you are telling me, well, it's gonna lose appeal to him too, because it's like all this work, but I'm not. He's not getting what he was getting before. So eventually he might get tired, right? Like, so what I'm saying is, but Sulma, I want to be happy now. Okay, start working on yourself. It's going to be a long road. But if you don't start working on yourself, you're going to continue on the road that you are right now. And it might not end in a good place, right? Like, so although is a longer way, is the safest way. So just look for that help, start working on yourself. Once you change, the relationship cannot stay the same.
Absolutely. It always starts with working on yourself. If you can't work on yourself, then you can't make a relationship with two people work. So thank you so much for sharing all of that and being vulnerable to share your story. I know it's going to help a lot of people. And what does it mean for you to be nourished inside out?
To look to nourish yourself with, like, you look in the mirror and you give yourself that nourishment so that it will fulfill you, and then you can give it to others, right? So it starts with the inside.
I love that. That's beautiful. And please tell us, where can people stay in touch with you and support you in your work?
uh, my Instagram at the swearing therapist, and my website is Dragonfly Therapy Services.net, and they can reach out and ask questions. And I'm licensed in Nevada, but even if they're in different states, I will do my best to provide with resources where they are. So don't hesitate to reach out.
You also have a podcast, right?
I do. It's called Keeping It Real with Zulma, the swearing therapist, and it's in all the platforms.
Amazing. I'll have everything linked down in the show notes below so people can stay in touch. Thank you, Zulma.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again.